Take it away, guys.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. So yes, as Melissa was saying, we are your staff specialists here in Regional Leader Support. And before I dive into an introduction of myself and my colleagues who are joining me on the call, I just want to give an overview of kind of what we're going to be working through tonight. So we'll start with our a general overview of our team, introductions to us and how we can support you in your work. Then move into some tips and tricks we found be successful for regional leader teams in their intra-team collaboration. Then move a little into looking at some resources that are available to you in your role. And finally, we'll wrap it up with some travel and expenses. Everybody's favorite exciting topic, but we're going to hope to answer some of your questions. So we'll try to make it relatively informal and leave you plenty of time to ask any burning questions on your end. And that said, we'll be opening up to engage in a little bit of discussion with you all as we go throughout the call. As Melissa said, please feel free to use the chat pane to reach out to us with questions as they come up, but we'll also leave good time for Q&A at the end. Great. So I will kick us off with introducing myself and then our colleague Chrissy Schwartz, who is not able to be with us live tonight. So Chrissy works with the RRFC team. She's our RRFC specialist. And she has moved to our team from donor services and support, where she was the major donor coordinator for 2 years. So I think for those of you who are working on our RRFC team, you're going to really enjoy getting to know Chrissy and benefiting from some of her foundation experience. My name is Nora Beamish-Lannon. I work with the Rotary coordinators, and I've been with Rotary for 5 years now and have been supporting the RCs for about 4 of those. Prior to this, I worked in international education. And then I'm going to kick it over to Nina.
Hi, I'm Nina Hajalam. I provide support for the Rotary's public image coordinators. Before joining the Rotary International family 5 months ago, I had an extensive experience working in media, specifically radio broadcasting and publishing, event management, marketing, and I also worked for Peace Corps as a cross-cultural trainer. Destiny?
Can you hear me? Good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Destiny Nobles. I've been with Regional Leader Support for about 6 months now. I'm supporting the Endowment and Major Gifts Advisors. And prior to working with Regional Leader Support, I was working in the foundation on the donor relations team, where I worked with the Arch Clump Society and then also helped plan donor recognition and stewardship events. So I'm really excited to be working with EMGAs now. So before we kind of dive in, we'd love to hear a little bit more about who is on the call with us. So I know Melissa kicked off a poll earlier, but maybe if you could put in the chat box of the poll a little bit about yourself, your name, what role you will be in this coming year, and whether you are a new or continuing regional leader.
Let's see, where in the chat box? I'll check there.
Yes, yep, you can find the chat button just down below. Great.
Looks like we've got Michelle, who's a continuing RPIC.
A new EMGA.
Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Marilyn. Continuing RRFC, continuing assistant RRFC. Wow, lots of continuing.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right, so it looks like a lot of good experience and some new faces, so that's great to see.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. A little bit about our regional leader support team. Chrissy, the RRFC specialist, Nora, Nina, and myself are part of a larger team of 9 based here in Evanston. Our team, Regional Leader Support, provides support to all regional leaders and your assistants across the globe. Our team really is designed to mirror your regional team and mirroring the kind of collaboration that your team demonstrates in the field. We gather and share your best practices and success stories, and then try to disseminate that out to all the regional teams around the globe. Our team also develops resources, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then we share updates on key initiatives happening at Rotary and the Foundation, and also help to connect you with Rotarians and other Rotary staff. And then finally, we also assist with some of your administrative functions. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And I'll pass it over to Nora now, or sorry, to Nina to talk a little bit more about the regional team. Yes.
Before we delve into the role, let's take a high-level look at what the regional leader teams are set up to accomplish. You are part of a team dedicated to building strong, dynamic, effective districts and through them, clubs. You are an integral link between Rotary International and the grassroots work occurring within your districts and clubs. In your role, you may be called on to wear many hats. You may be asked to serve as a trainer and facilitator at district meetings and events, or you will motivate your district, championing their successes and keeping them focused through setbacks. You may also serve as consultants, providing individually tailored advice based on your understanding of their unique circumstances, or also drawing in the outside experience and expertise you have from working with a broader range of districts, or even calling in skills from your professional life, which is always great. Moving to the next slide. As a regional team, you will have many opportunities to work with one another. And I would like to ask a question. What are some ways in which strength in one of your subject areas can provide an opportunity for one of your regional leader peers? You can answer with your voice, or you can print it. Any ideas, any examples?
Interesting.
Any examples?
I'm seeing from Chris here in the chat box, more members provide for a larger audience to support the Rotary Foundation.
Great. I will provide my favorite example. I think that, let's say, Rotary Foundation project is just asking for some media attention. That's why I always see great opportunities of collaboration between Rotary Foundation leaders and public image people. Okay, let's move on. I think we'll have more time to discuss those questions if they exist at the end of our conversation. I know that you guys will have broader discussions and conversation later, and before that, I just want to give you a few things that you might want to consider in advance. For example, how to plan your communication together. We'll talk about this a bit more in a minute, but also you will share successes and challenges from the district, so you can jointly build on promising work and collectively address areas of opportunity, or providing like joint training events that will enable your groups to work together. Those are very important points. Finally, remember to advocate for one another in the field. Refer districts to your peers for assistance and talk up each other's expertise, because you are each other's best marketing support. This is very, very important. Communication? Returning back to communication, before the Rotary year begins, think about how you'll communicate with your team. and with district leaders. Look for the opportunities to send joint communications to the districts to avoid email overload or duplicate messages. Always ask district leaders how they prefer to communicate, like emails, conference calls, and develop your plan accordingly. Keep in mind the variety of ways you can stay in contact and choose the ones that will work best for you. Here are some options to explore. Newsletters. With newsletters, you can reach a large audience with timely messages. To keep your readers' attention, use eye-catching images, be concise, and include information that they haven't read before. Email. Emails work better when you are trying to reach a small audience or when the news needs to be shared quickly. Keep your message brief and to the point. Use the subject line to clearly describe the purpose of the email. Also, always ask to add your email to the address book so it doesn't end up in the junk folder. Same, by the way, for the newsletter. Social media allows you to stay in touch in a more informal and immediate way. Use it to keep in contact with your regional team, for example, through WhatsApp, or to engage your district leaders through a regional or zone Facebook page. Conference calls. They're best when you need to talk with a small group of people to strategize or answer questions. Effective conference calls often have a set agenda and last 30 to 60 minutes. And I guess we're moving to the next slide.
Great, thanks, Nina. So communication with the district leaders is key, but equally important is going to be how your team will communicate with one another. And as assistant coordinators, you're really going to be playing a key role in not only doing the direct work in the districts, but then making sure that all of the efforts and the strategies, successes, and even challenges that you're seeing are then bubbling up to inform the general approach that your team is taking. And this is going to be something that's especially important to keep in mind around the regional leader reporting periods. And so let me take a step back and give you a little bit of background on the regional leader reports. Regional leaders are assigned annual goals by either the president or the trustee chair, depending on if you're working as an RC or an RPIC or an RRFC or EMGA. Regional leaders are then asked to provide periodic reporting against those goals through a series of online forms that are administered from our team. These reports that the regional leaders complete are mandatory, and they're designed to help measure progress both individually as well as collectively against the established goals. They are a chance to record notable successes that you're seeing in the field, so that those really unique things that the districts are trying that are working really well, and then also to share some of those common challenge or pain points that you might see develop that you think could be addressed with a more coordinated or strategic approach. They're also one of the times that we ask for feedback on the resources we already provide, as well as give you an opportunity to shout out and let us know where there might be some gaps in the resources that are coming from Rotary that you think could address some of those challenges you're seeing. And while it is the regional leader who submits these reports, it's really crucial that they are able to gather the feedback from the full team in order to present as complete a picture as possible during these reporting periods. So with that in mind, we really recommend that assistant coordinators regularly communicate your work with the regional leader that you're working with, but then also think about using the reporting schedule that's laid out here on the screen as an opportunity to have some of those full team check-ins. We've seen a number of teams take this in a different direction. So some hold conference calls around the reporting time. Others share out Word documents or use email to collect information from their assistant teams. It's really up to whatever works best for you, but this is really, these are key times of year to be doing a little bit of a check-in. The 4 reports that go out are as follows. In May to June will be an opportunity to turn in a goal strategy document, so an outline of how your team will be working towards those annual goals. And those are then followed by 2 progress reports throughout the year, one in October and then one in June. And then in January, there's a period to evaluate kind of the activities that your team's engaged in, the outcomes that you're seeing so far, and do a little bit of informal skills assessment. And so I will pause here and see if perhaps anybody who's been through the regional leader team previously, so is currently serving, maybe has some thoughts on how their team has worked to gather this data in the past, what's been effective, what maybe could use a little bit of reworking. And I will say we are getting a little bit of feedback on the line, so if you're gonna jump in and talk, that's great, but if not, if you could put yourself on mute when not speaking, that would be helpful. Any thoughts? If not, we can move on. Okay, well, in that case, I will just say, please do keep this in mind. Do think about how your team is going to be sharing information regularly, but then also especially around the reporting period. And in just a minute, we'll start looking at resources. And for those of you who have not seen the annual goals yet, I'll show you where you can go to find those. Great. So now moving on to resources. As a regional leader, you and your assistant coordinators will have access to a number of resources designed specifically for your role. So our suite of publications, which you can see up here on the screen, the Regional Leaders Manual, the Regional Team Training Guide, and the Regional Leaders Directory are each updated on an annual basis. The 2020 and 21 versions of these are published now and available for your use. I want to take a moment to especially highlight the Regional Leaders Manual as a really good source of consolidated information. In addition to providing an overview of the roles and responsibilities of each position, it contains more information on the regional leader budget that's available for use, expenses, different training styles and training events that are held throughout the year, as well as some thoughts and best practices on creating effective communications. Not pictured up here on the screen is our monthly newsletter, the Regional Leader Insider. It will reach each of you automatically on a monthly basis, starting at least by 1 July. And the caveat to the monthly part of that is that the newsletter only goes out on those months that don't begin with the letter J. So if you miss your January newsletter, that is the reason why. And this is a really short and quick way for us to share updates to publications that have been recently released, updates to any major policy shifts of note. We share best practices from the field, so we highlight stories of some effective things that we've seen other teams doing, and it's just a really nice one-stop shop to go to. I also always recommend if you see something interesting in there, it is only reaching a regional leader and assistant coordinator audience, so it makes a really nice quick grab and go if you want to take some content and repurpose it for your own districts. Next up is the Regional Leaders Workgroup. So this is our team's file sharing site. You can access the Regional Leaders Workgroup through your My Rotary profile. And this is where we house materials that are relevant specifically for the 4 regional leader roles. And those are materials that are created by both staff and Rotarians alike, which is kind of unique. So in terms of the staff created resources, we have the publications that we saw on the prior page shared there. We also have copies of the annual goals. So if you want to take a look at the 20 to 21 annual goals for your program, they are saved up on the work group. And then we also share templates of those reports that I was talking about a minute ago in Word document form on the work group around the time that we release the reports out into the field. So if you are looking at doing a conference call or you're looking to gather information over email, you'll be able to use that as a quick template before you complete and submit your final online version of those. In addition, we also share all of the curriculum from the regional leaders trainings that we have here in Evanston. And very similar to the newsletter that I was speaking about, the regional leader training is a training event specific to either incoming RCs, RRFCs, and RPICs, or incoming and first year EMGAs. So it sees a relatively small audience, but with just a few tweaks, you can take some of that curriculum, easily update it, and use it for your own trainings with the district leaders. So I do recommend checking that out as well. On the Rotarian side, your peers who have sent in newsletters to us or presentations, we take and share those on the work group as well. So it's a nice place to stop to see if you're working on something and you want to see if anybody else out there has tried something similar. You can go there and look for a little bit of inspiration. And because I know your area is multilingual, it's worth noting you can see along the side the first thing you do when you get onto the work group is you select your language. So you can choose either English, or if you're working with your French speakers, you can go in and select French. Anything that's staff created, we typically have in all languages. The Rotarian created content obviously is whatever language it was submitted in. But you can check there for French and English resources, which is nice. Okay. In addition to all of those regional leader specific resources, Rotary continues to invest in the digital tools which let all Rotarians work faster, more efficiently, and do so while being informed with the most up-to-date information. So before we dive into some of the resources available on My Rotary, I want to just take a minute and ask folks if they could use the chat bar to call out any resources that they themselves find particularly helpful in the work they're doing. Take a minute and see if anybody has a favorite publication, favorite part of the website that they're always checking back on, maybe the blogs. Reports. Okay, excellent. I figured we'd have somebody who was excited about reporting. We've got two. Oh boy. All right. So it looks like reports are by far and away the winner, which is great. We're going to talk through some reporting strategies in a little bit. But in addition to reports, I do want to call out that there are a variety of resources that will help inform you on subjects like fundraising, public relations, membership, Rotary's new action plan, which has been really kind of hot button topic this whole year as well as last year, and will continue to be so, I imagine, into the future. Rotaract, again, something that's been really, really top of mind for the organization of late. Projects, oh, sorry, advanced too quickly. And you can find all of these under the Learning and Reference tab on My Rotary. And when you go to each of these individual pages, you'll see things like sample, or not sample, but publications that are available for download, presentation templates, as well as just recent updates from any changes within the organization. So as you're going out into the field and preparing a speech or are planning to rework a training, I do recommend checking and seeing what's available on the website first. Even if what you're doing is just crafting your messaging a little bit, it's really helpful to see how some of these presentations, some of the publications that we have available here talk about a certain subject so that you can be building some of that into your own work that you're doing. I know that you all are very, very busy, and so whenever there's an opportunity to not recreate the wheel when there's good material that already exists and can just be modified a little bit, that is always a hopefully very beneficial time saver. And I will also throw myself and then my lovely colleagues who are out here on the call, if you're ever looking for something and want to know if there is perhaps a tool available for you to use, feel free to reach out to us and we can point you in the right direction. Okay, now Rotary Club Central. I am sure that most everybody on this call is familiar with Rotary Club Central, but maybe you've used it as a club officer or a district officer in the past, and it might operate a little bit differently in your regional leader role. So as a regional leader, you can go to this Global View tab here to get a breakdown that you can delve into by district and then further drill down into by club to see the rate of goal setting and accomplishment across your districts. And this, I think, is really helpful to kind of take the temperature of where clubs in your region are focusing their energy during the year. My caveat to this will be that for those of you who are coming into this role new, your access in Rotary Club Central to see all of the districts in your future region is not set up yet. So if you go in and you're still only seeing your district and your club, that's normal. And then by 1 July, we'll have that broadened access set up for you all. Another good thing to note in Rotary Club Central is that the Rotary citation this year has changed a little bit in how it's operating. So clubs now just need to go into Rotary Club Central, select and achieve any 13 of the, I believe, 25 goals that are available in order to be eligible for the citation. That's a little bit of how you might use Rotary Club Central in your role. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Nina, who's going to talk a little bit about the Brand Center, unless there are any questions.
Okay, Brand Center is your #1 hands-on tool for creating any public image promotional marketing content,
I forgot I had
like
this training
stories,
thing at pardon me, 4 o'clock.
ads, logos, banners, and they are always going to be brand compliant. Bonus point, using Brand Center will save you budget because you can easily skip hiring designers and generate a lot of promotional materials right there. The content on the Brand Center is getting updated constantly, so please check out regularly. There are several sections that you can explore. It's People of Action, where you will get everything you need from Rotary's latest public image campaign. There are plenty of guidelines. Will you find and apply messaging and visual guidelines to your communications to tell Rotary's story in a consistent and engaging way. There is a section where you can download high-resolution logos and Rotary graphics. Materials section where you can get customized materials to promote your club, projects, and programs. Section on ads where you can download online different pre-made ads for print or outdoor or radio ads and promote Rotary in your community. Also a section on images and videos. I want to give you 5 reasons why you should use Rotary Brand Center. Brand Center offers a simple and intuitive way to customize your club logo, create a marketing brochure, or give your newsletter a fresh look. You'll also find guidelines, as I said, and answers to frequently asked questions, as well as information about why telling our story is important. The Brand Center enables everybody to play an active role in promoting Rotary to the world. So the 5 reasons are, number 1, you can create your own club and district logos featuring Rotary's master brand signature and see your edits in real time. Number 2, you can develop professional-looking PowerPoint presentations, press releases, newsletters that incorporate Rotary's visual identity. Templates can be customized as much or as little as you want. Number 3, you can find guidelines for using Rotary's logos and answers to frequently asked questions about our new visual identity. For instance, did you know that your member pin remains unchanged and that free fonts are available on Brand Center along with the commercially licensed options. Reason number 4, you can upload and store the materials and logos you create for future use by creating a basket. Use the quick share function to email your basket or the products in your basket to share your new materials with members or districts. And reason number 5, you can download broadcast quality public service announcements, videos, and images to help tell Rotary's story. Choose from a variety of topics to illustrate, including join leaders, exchange ideas, take action, our 3 organizing principles. So Brand Center is a great resource if you want to jump on any public image project. With Brand Center, anyone can use the tools and templates to create as I said, logos and documents that reflect our unified look, yet personalized to the club or your district. And I think another thing that I want to share, please promote using the Brand Center to your districts and clubs and members. Moving to Rotary Learning Center, another one of my favorite resources and tools. Rotary Learning Center has been adding a significant amount of content over the past few years. The Learning Center already contains courses on membership and grants management, and the first 3 in an upcoming series of brand and public image courses were just added to within 2 last months. I'm very excited about that because this year is going to be big for public image courses on the Learning Center. Keep that in mind. There are 3 already. When you're putting together a training, one thing we recommend is to consider assigning some pre-learning just to make sure everyone comes in with a consistent baseline of knowledge. The Learning Center courses are really great for pre-learning. My question is, has anyone on this call used the Learning Center for pre-learning before? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, yes, great. If not, well, we just got 2 yeses, so I hope more people will, 3 yeses, great. So if you haven't yet, please do and advise your districts to do the same. In addition to a great pre-learning resource, it now has a number of professional development courses covering topics like mentorship, adult learning, change management. These not only address common challenges we hear coming from clubs and districts, but value add to our members looking to build some of these core skills. I guess.
So I know that we just covered a lot in terms of my Rotary, the Learning Center, and the Brand Center. So we just want to take a couple of minutes to take time for questions and then also have some discussion. So in the chat box, I would love to see if any of you think that your districts are comfortable using and finding the tools they need on My Rotary, or if they're really choosing to create resources from scratch. Okay, so we got one from Melissa. She doesn't know how many people are logging into My Rotary. It's good to know. That's great. Yeah, promoting it at pets as pets are starting to get going this season is a great way to promote these tools. Okay. That's a great question about Toastmasters. Yeah, so as the rollout continues, we will begin to have more classes available on kind of the partnership and then also on how to increase and work on your public speaking. So that's a great question from Bill.
And I'll also jump in here and say that there are some reports available on the number of people who have active My Rotary accounts in the districts, which can be kind of a nice barometer to look at and see how engaged people are on that platform.
Yeah, so great. Thank you everyone for responding. And then another question. Question about where are these reports?
Those are ones that you would have to reach out to me for, and then I can run them and share them with you. They're not available externally, unfortunately. So we are working on that to see if they can be.
But certainly are great if you're thinking about doing pre-learning, so you are able to kind of track who has already done courses. And then I know some of you mentioned that you're not sure how many people in your districts or your clubs are really using these resources. And then someone mentioned pets as a way to roll out these tools. Are there any other ways that you all have found to increase adoption of Rotary's resources or some of the online centers that they can use? And would anyone be able to share some of the strategies that you've used so far? Facebook groups. Yeah, that's great. Yes, absolutely talking about them if you're visiting clubs or if you're presenting at district seminars or conferences. That's great. Yes, include them in your training materials. Absolutely. Yes, and if you have newsletters, if you're sending out newsletters to district leaders, certainly including those in your emails. Great ways to promote these resources and then also increase engagement. That's great. Thank you everyone for reflecting on this. These are great things for us to think about as well as we're promoting these resources to you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Nora to talk a little bit more about reports.
Okay, great. Well, I heard a lot of interest in the reports in our earlier poll on kind of what people are using as their top resources at the moment. So I hope that some of you on the call have had the chance to look through the pre-learning that Bill sent out and play around with the reports a little bit on your own. Rather than dive into specific data that's available here, we're going to focus on some big picture strategies for using the reports that are in My Rotary. But first, I'm hoping to, from those of you who did have a chance to look through some of the pre-learning, hear from anyone on whether or not they saw any unexpected trends. And I guess this stands whether or not you saw that specifically in the pre-learning, but if you've ever had an experience of going in to one of these reports and finding out that, oh, things are a little bit different than I would have surmised at first. And you can feel free to unmute yourself and just talk out loud or use the chat pane. Any reporting surprises? Okay. Well, barring any surprises from the field, I will say that really reports are a great way to build data-driven strategies. And so as an example of that, if you are, say, an assistant Rotary coordinator who's working with a really motivated DMC to address some declining membership trends that they've seen, the first thought that might come to your head is, hey, we should be collaborating on developing a really strong and engaging prospective member event. But if you take a look at some of the reporting, it might be that you see that the district has a long history of bringing in a good number of members each year, but that those members are not really staying in the clubs for more than a year or two. And that might be a cue that the issue the district is facing is not one of member attraction, but might be more about the member experience that those clubs are seeing, or those members are seeing once they're actually in clubs. And that way, reports can be a really helpful sort of hypothesis check method for you as you're going about and planning on how best to address the district's needs. Another way that you might use reports is to help you as you're getting to know your districts. So the reports for a given district are a great place to turn when you're making that first initial outreach to offer your team services. It arms you with some knowledge about the district beforehand and shows that you've made the effort to get to know them a little bit before going in and offering your support. And I personally am always an advocate for opening with the positives that you see. You might find that the districts are more willing to acknowledge and address weak spots if they believe that their strengths are also being seen. And now I'm going to stop here and see if we can get any thoughts from the group on any particularly good reports to go to get a quick and dirty glance at what's going on in a district on both the membership or foundation side.
I have to go hunt down the report, but there is one report that I love for membership. It talks about, it's like the state of the district almost, like for the past 5 years. I love that report. I love just the numbers it presents, the growth, and if districts are making strides and taking a lot of effort, it just shows up right away.
Yeah, that's awesome. One that I will highlight from the membership side is called the District Membership Profile. It's relatively newer and you can run it through Rotary Club Central or through, it's called Trends in a District on My Rotary, and Melissa does a really similar thing. It gives some historical figures but also compiles a lot of different metrics into one report. So it's looking at retention rates, it's looking at female members, alumni, and it gives you all of that kind of in one to-go snapshot. So that's a really nice one.
That sounds great, thank you.
Anything on the foundation side that's been particularly helpful for folks? Okay.
The district fundraising analysis, yes, that one is wonderful. Both
I
on
think
the EMGA and RRFC side, yeah.
The membership profile I was speaking about is, I think, based off of some of the success they've seen with the fundraising analysis. So it's a similar structure and setup. All right. So the next tip that we'll throw out there is being mindful of a mixed audience. So there are those in your crowd who might feel really, really comfortable with data, might be really interested in getting deep down into the analytics. And then we know that there are those folks who perhaps do not find themselves as compelled by raw data. In fact, we've heard from regional leaders in the past that they sometimes face what I would label data resistance. So going in front of audiences and receiving the impression that, they're not interested in looking at figures, they're not interested in hearing about numerical trends. And so how do you combat that? And I would make the case that there is a way to make sure that you are teaching to a broad realm of learning styles without ever having to sacrifice some of the insights that you're taking out of these reports. So a few tips that I can share is, first, when building out presentations, it's always helpful to look for a balance between numbers on the screen, but then also maybe some graphics, some simple text, things that are going to prevent just having a series of multiple graphs or a really, really long list of numbers up on a single slide, but breaking some of that out so that you're focusing on the really key factors that you want to highlight. Second, don't assume that the data will speak for itself. Always wrap it up in some additional context so folks know why they should be paying attention to the trends that you're exploring. Presenting data as an illustrative example of a larger narrative is one way to engage with a broader audience. And finally, I would say, make sure that the district leaders know that this information is available to them as well. And that, I think, goes back to some of the conversation about the comfort level of districts with working with the resources available to them on My Rotary. So I think that it can be really nice to share figures with your districts, but I'm always an advocate for give them that helping hand of letting them know that they can also be going out and monitoring these trends on their own, that they don't have to wait to have a report sent to them or to wait until they're sitting in the district seminar to see an update on how things are going. Be providing some of that additional education too, so that we can have really well-trained district leaders who feel comfortable with the reporting data they're seeing. So for those on the call, have you found particularly compelling ways to weave data into your trainings or presentations? Or have you ever had experiences of engaging with audiences who might be a little more resistant to looking at numerical data?
This is Michelle O'Brien. I don't weave the data at all in specifics into anything that I communicate to my groups. I know it, I have it in my head. And so if I want to have a membership focus, or if I want to talk about how public image will benefit membership or the foundation or something like that, I'm aware of that, but I never call it out in a group ever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other thoughts besides having that as kind of your back pocket support there? Okay, well, in that case, we can move on to travel and expenses.
Nora,
Okay.
just a quick, I just want to pause you for a second, if I may. Somebody had asked, Bill asked, if a special report is generated by request, does it accept new data over time, or must it be requested each month?
Bill, I'm wondering if you can give a little bit more context around that.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Excellent. Yeah, if there's a report, if I'm working with a club and I want to get some, or the district for that matter, and I want some specific information that doesn't exist in an existing report. So I call you up, you say, yes, no problem. And so you have been able now to create a new report. That report is based on data from today, but being that our systems are dynamic, if I wanted to follow maybe a 3-month trend, would I need to call you up each month to get a refresh on that report, or does it automatically accept that data given the report, the request, and the...
Okay, so I think I got your question there. And I would say that in some ways depends. So there are a few reports that we have access to here internally. So I mentioned before kind of statistics available on those who have active My Rotary accounts within a given district, which are available internally but not published externally. Those are going to automatically update so long as they're being maintained here. And so in that case, it would just be a question of reaching back out and saying, hey, can you run that for me again? And I would be happy to. If somebody on staff is building a specific custom-made report for a one-time request, those are, I think, a little bit less common scenarios. But if that's the case, I would just check with whoever that staff person is to see if it's going to be easily accessible again, or if it's really, if they're kind of hand building something on a case-by-case scenario. Does that kind of answer your question?
I'm not sure if he's having an issue, so let's assume yes, and if not, we can connect.
Yeah, and I will say if you're working with the reports that are available on My Rotary and you have a question that they're not answering, please do feel free to reach out to your staff specialist and let us know, and we can see if there is something available internally that we can help to provide you with. Great.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing. Thanks, Nora, for talking a little bit more about data and reports. So now we'll talk a little bit more about some of the administrative functions, especially travel and expenses, which I know everyone is so excited to talk about. Just want to emphasize that making sure to document both your travel and your expense needs will make this process flow much more smoothly throughout the year. So first, talking about travel, please remember that you must use RITS, the Rotary International Travel Services, for all air travel and any ground travel, such as driving, taking the train, or a taxi to the airport that will exceed $350 US. And then please also note that if you choose to do a local purchase of airfare, you do need to receive pre-approval from RITS in order to do this, and you're able to submit your travel request form like normal and then check the box saying, yes, I would like to make a local purchase, or I would like to drive if you estimate that it'll be above $350. Those are some of the things that will make it go a lot more smoothly on the reimbursement end. And if you're choosing to drive, please know that the mileage reimbursement rates can always be found on your regional leaders work group, which we highlighted earlier. For travel request forms, please make sure that you're sending these as early as possible to RITS to ensure adequate time for booking, and then to also have any updates from your travel agent. And make sure to always copy your staff specialist as well on these requests. And then for any assistance, coordinators, please make sure that your assistant is copying you on these travel requests to RITS as well. And assistance, if you're not copying your coordinator, this will significantly slow the travel process. So make sure to do that. And if you ever have questions on this process, certainly reach out to your staff specialist, and we're more than happy to talk through this process with you. Moving on to talk a little bit more about some of those deadlines. Please be aware of submission deadlines, both for travel, but also for your expenses. If you take a look at the Rotary International Travel Policy, you can look at some of the deadlines for submitting domestic travel as well as international travel. And then for expenses, any expenses that are submitted past 60 days of when the expense was concurred may not be reimbursed. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on when your expenses need to be submitted. And then also note that we will not reimburse for events that have not yet happened. So some things to keep in mind there. And similar to travel, assistants need to be sure to copy their coordinators on emails to expense reports. And this will suffice as your approval that you approve their expenses. And then again, failure to copy your coordinator on that email will delay the process. So some of the key things to note for travel and expenses, and the emails there on the screen are the key emails that you'll use. RITS for Rotary travel, and then expense reports when submitting any expenses. And then finally, talking a little bit more about just that documentation. It's really important that you keep your receipts as you're traveling and racking up expenses, as this will make it a lot easier to submit your expense reports once you get back home and things have settled down a little bit. So any expenses over $75 US, we need a receipt for. And then any expenses that are related to a hotel stay also we'll need a receipt for. So keep these, scan them in, email them, whatever it might be, so that you have these when you return home. And if you ever are unsure of if an expense is eligible or not to be reimbursed, simply ask your staff specialist again ahead of time, and we'll be more than happy to talk through what you can and cannot be reimbursed for. And then moving on to talk a little bit more about your budget and how that lines in with your expenses. For coordinators and advisors, remember that your funding, your budget, also covers your assistants. So you're responsible for making sure that your regional team is aware of and follows expense and documentation guidelines. So again, making sure if you're a coordinator that your assistants are copying you on any emails to RITS or to expense reports, and then making sure to track how much of your budget you and your assistants are using. a pro tip. There is a helpful budget tracking template available on the Regional Leaders Workgroup. This is a great resource for beginning to track out how much you and your assistants are using each month and throughout the Rotary year, so you're able to properly allocate funds for events that you're attending and thinking about towards the end of the Rotary year, making sure that you aren't running out of budget. Reimbursements for your eligible expenses.
Okay.
Sorry,
I think
Paul.
we had a problem.
Yep. Can you hear me now? Okay, very sorry. My internet has just cut out, but I think I should be back now. So wrapping up budget, certainly continue to verify your balance throughout the year, and you can email your staff specialist in order to do this.
So Destiny, there was a question on the chat about, and I know that this is something that we're facing. You said there's that time frame where you can submit expenses, but
Yes.
what happens if an expense is incurred well in advance of those 60 days?
Absolutely. So in those cases, we certainly understand if you need to, say, pay for Institute, but Institute isn't happening until 3 months from now. Just let us know, okay, this expense was incurred 3 months ago, but the event didn't happen until 2 weeks ago, so that we can communicate that to accounts payable.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep, that's a great question.
Destiny, Bill Robson here.
Hi, Bill.
Hi. One of the things that I came up with, and it's regarding prepaying for something, and I think that's what Michelle may be asking about. We had to pay for pets, which happens next week, this coming weekend. We had to pay for that several weeks ago, and I did exactly what you said. I contacted Nora, and I actually got reimbursed for my registration fee, even though pets is not happening until this weekend.
Okay.
My hotel and my travel expenses, I can't claim until the event happens, but the actual registration fee for pets, I was able to claim at the
Great.
time. So that's something that we need to know, that the coordinators need to know, that there are exceptions to the rules.
Yes, absolutely. And if you ever have questions about that, you did the right thing, Bill. Contact your staff specialist, and we can work with accounts payable as well on some of those questions.
And I will add to that, kind of informally, one of the things finance looks at is the overall cost of the advanced registration. So when we've been able to successfully request exceptions, it's usually because the registration fee is high enough that it doesn't make sense to ask somebody to sit with that on their credit card for multiple months. But those are, as Destiny said, things that it's better to check in advance so that we can confirm with finance one way or another if they'll put it through or not.
Yeah, this is Michelle O'Brien. This is why I specifically asked for this to be part of our subject matter tonight, because someone just chimed in and said they're learning about the expenses after the fact. And it can become quite confusing. As I noted in an email, I didn't know that as an RPIC, an assistant RPIC a couple of years ago. So I went ahead and booked my own flights. I thought they were really groovy and, you know, discounted and everything else. And I had no idea. And so poor Connor was like, okay, we have to check this out. So it's really important for the assistants to communicate with your coordinator But also remember, all of your flights have to go through RITS. And if you have any questions, that's why these folks are here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michelle.
And I will say that stands for, we get a lot of questions about local purchase. That also stands for, even if you see a really great, really cheap airfare, RITS still has to sign off on that in advance, or you might not get your full reimbursement afterwards. And I know that those can be pretty disappointing conversations to have after the fact, especially when somebody is making that decision out of an effort to conserve Rotary's funds. It still needs to get that pre-approval though. So that's a great point, Michelle.
And I will reiterate that driving point as well. So if you know, okay, I'm going to multiple clubs or multiple districts, it's better for me to drive, but you know, or you think that you might go above $350 for reimbursement, definitely submit your travel form ahead of time, and you can check that box, I would like to drive. That way we can reimburse you after your trip. So, and I know that's something that we run into frequently, as people who are driving and they want to claim, but didn't submit that form ahead of time.
Yes, and especially with driving, it can come up with like gas mileage and toll fees. So it's better to be prepared in advance, even if you think that maybe it's going to be less than $350. Still better to go through RITS so there's no bad surprises afterwards.
Do we have any other travel or expenses questions or other just general questions?
Yeah, hey Nora, this is Michelle again. Just to chime in, where was I going? I was trying to make some travel arrangements. Oh, it was to Anchorage. Anyway, and I had asked RITS for hotel and a car rental, and that was on the form, but they didn't respond to that request. So just an FYI, RITS is, I don't know, 4 stars in my book. Sorry.
This is Bill Gormont here. I've been successful in recommending to RITS, this is what I'd like to do. And in some cases, they weren't aware that that option was present. And so I've been more successful than not at them taking my recommendation.
Yeah, that's great. You always do have the option to put in preferred flights. If you have like a frequent flyer mile code with anybody, you can add that in as extra context. I will say RITS doesn't always book hotels. And if you're ever running into Michelle's situation where you're not sure if it should be RITS or if you're going to be asked to do it on your own and you haven't gotten a response, please reach out to one of us and we'd be happy to help clarify with our RITS colleagues who should be booking the hotel. On a kind of similar vein, if you're ever taking an early morning flight and you live really far from the airport and you think, oh, I'll just stay overnight at the airport in advance and then claim it afterwards, that's another really good thing to just let us know upfront in your RITS request so that they can take a look at that in the full context of the travel that they're booking. They'll sometimes want to make sure that if there's a hotel night happening at the airport, that it's because the time of the flight really mandated that. And so just clearing that off the bat is going to save potentially a little bit of a delay or a little bit of extra explanation on the back end.
Any other questions?
And we can actually do a little bit of screen sharing on where you can find some of these travel documents. So let me pull that up for you and I will drag it into my shared screen. Oh. And I am sorry, that's very zoomed in. So let's see if we can get it to normal size. So this is again just on the My Rotary page. You can go to Manage, and then it's Travel and Expenses, and it'll take you to this landing page. And this is where you can go to download that RITS form. You can go to download the expense report statements for after you're done with your travel. And then this is Rotary's travel policy, which is a great first stop to see if you think that something will be eligible, ineligible. It's got those deadlines for when to request travel, when to submit expense reports if you're ever looking for a refresher. And then there are some other nice little documents down here about documenting your expenses, the exchange rates if you're looking for the current rate to use on your expense report form. I know that Destiny already mentioned this. The automobile reimbursement rate right now does not actually direct to anything, but those are on our regional leaders work group. So please do be referencing to the work group for those. And I can actually show you exactly where on the work group those are as well, if you give me 1 second. So this is our work group. If you go in and you select English as your language, you can come down here and you'll see that mileage reimbursement rates right there is going to be where you can go to find those driving rates for claims.
So this is Michelle again. I have a random question. So folks on the East Coast and maybe in the middle, or I don't know, wherever, certainly not in Alaska, they drive a lot of places, right? And that's fantastic. But everyone, at least in Alaska and perhaps on the western side of Canada, flies. And so what we do is we do a lot of webinars. Have you, and again, I have no skin in this game. I was just curious if you've had any coordinators around the world start requesting reimbursement for like their Zoom membership or something like that to hold those meetings.
Yeah, that is absolutely reimbursable. You can go ahead and send in those expense reports if you have not already.
Hint, hint, Bill Robson.
Got you, Michelle.
And those are, so this is kind of getting maybe into the nitty gritty on that, but if you have an annual subscription, you're gonna wanna submit it just 60 days after you pay that renewal fee. If you're going month by month, the 60-day limit applies, and so that's just gonna be something to keep track of to make sure that you're submitting those regularly. I think sometimes annual subscriptions can be a better overall cost benefit depending on which provider you're using, but if you're ever looking for an incentive, the annual subscription is just actually 11 less expense reports to submit. So something to keep in mind. Okay. Any other questions?
No, this was like almost the most helpful part of the entire scenario here tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Okay, let me just.
I'd like to jump in here and just thank Melissa for setting this up, and our wonderful staff members, Destiny, Nora, and Christina. And there's so many of you. I forget everybody else that's on there from staff, but thank you so much for putting this together for the coordinators and the assistant coordinators, and again, once again, Melissa for setting this up. Look forward to the next one in a couple of weeks, folks. And
I want to be mindful of the time. It's 8:17 here, so we've been about an hour 15-ish.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that Nora and crew have a chance to close out. And
yeah. So thanks again, Chrissy,
Thanks,
Nina, Destiny, Nora, and I noticed Christina Sweeney was on there too. Oh, that's probably Chrissy Schwartz. Sorry. Laura, you want a few final words?
Yeah, so my final words would be, first, thank you everybody for hopping on, and thank you for your patience with our multiple internet outages. I know that was far from ideal. I have our contact information up on the screen, the slide deck. Bill and Melissa, you already have a copy of this. Please feel free to go ahead and send that out to people. And yes, please, please, please keep reaching out to us. We're happy to walk you through anything that comes up as you go.
Thank you so much, guys. And thank you to everyone that was on the call. And I put a chat message out there that Bill and I would love to hear your feedback on this form of meeting as opposed to all of us flying to Chicago. So anything that we can improve moving forward, we've got several of these scheduled in the future, and just let us know.
Yeah, everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. Again, kind of sorry for the delays at the beginning. RI had a little bit of an internet blackout, but we look forward to seeing you again. Bill has on the schedule, and of course it's not in front of me at the moment, I believe our next online webinar is in 2 weeks. So look out for Bill's email, and we'll be talking to everybody soon. Thanks, everybody.
Next meeting is March the 4th.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye now. Thanks
Thank
again.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again, Nora, Destiny, Christine, Nina. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Melissa.